Yo, what's up? I'm KallaTheYapper, and I'm back with another reaction. Today I'm gonna react to this video made by Blazion because I think he just posted it like what 3 hours ago. Hold up, let me search him up on my phone just so I can be sure. Give me a moment. Need to see how long. Yeah, this video was 3 hours ago. It's only got 698 views, which is fine. This content creator makes more views than I am. Makes more views than I ever do anyway, so I don't think I'm going to overtake him in viewership if I post my video today. I don't think I will. But, you know, I'd be surprised otherwise. Anyway, let's talk about this. Because he made a community post talking about... Hold up. Let me pull up here because it was about 10 hours ago. Right? This is what he said on his community post from 10 hours ago. Because I'm getting bodied on Twitter because these people are dumb AF and don't understand the difference between main story quest focus with lesser exposition of older characters and filler patches that focus on bad exposition of older or future characters. I had to give a better example here about the problems of the storytelling. In a nutshell, these people are used to the Hoyo formula and are used to seeing their Ventis and Zhonglis more often than not because of the garbage filler patches like Windbloom Festival and Lantern Rite. Don't understand how both of those patches are bad when it's really not. Especially if it's a celebratory event that, you know, characters celebrate in their story, in their world. You know, they make the world feel a little more lively. Oh, an event is happening. Why the hell can't we have that for Wuwa when it comes down to like Hong Long? Why couldn't we have a patch where we go back to Hong Long to celebrate an event that's unique to their culture, you know, that flushes out the region even more? Why can't we have that? Apparently having that is bad now. Anyway, they want Wuwa to show as much older characters because they are used to how Hoyoverse does these things. Hence why they are upset when Wuwa doesn't show the Jinshis, Chun-Lis, Carlottas, or Phoebes. I know I am right. I know these people are Hoyo pilled with shitty character expositions and filler patches of Hoyo games. They just don't get it. This is a very ignorant take. I'm gonna say that right now. It's ignorant. It's blatantly ignorant. I even respond to that like 9 hours ago. Right? And I mentioned how, well, if it's such, I mentioned how it's not an excuse to give to Wuwa in particular about why the hell they can't properly handle their old characters and integrate them into the main plot. Right? His whole take was, oh, because it's the Rover story, right? And since it's the Rover story, to him, since it's only about the Rover story, we should only focus about the Rover entirely, right? That's his logic. But you know something that completely contradicts that logic? The fact that when it comes down to the entirety of Renacida or just Wuthering Waves game as a whole, we've had multiple instances where the main story focused on another character. Like, for example, back in back in like Hong Long, when it came down to Jinshi's story on Mount Firmament. Was that story about the Rover? No, it was about Jinshi. That whole quest was purely about Jinshi. Yeah, we did learn a little bit more about the Rover in that at the end of that quest, right? And their relationship with the Sentinel, right? But the majority of that quest was about Jinshi. That completely dismantles his entire claim that Wuwa's story is only about the Rover. It's clearly not. And if it was, why in the hell do we have playable character stories being intertwined in the main story plot? Why in the hell did we spend so much time with Lupa in 2.4? Right? What sense does that make? What about for KallaTheYapper in version 2.3? Why the hell we spent so much time with her if this story is solely about, you know, Rover? Then KallaTheYapper shouldn't even exist as a character. We should have went up to that tower in the sky, following the voice of the Thernodia, and then, you know, met the Sentinel, possibly. Why didn't that happen? Why did we have a character tied to that? Mind you, KallaTheYapper has no direct relation to, you know, Rover whether it's especially in the past, because she never knew who the Rover was until now, right? But we spent time focusing on her character, right? Same thing with Galbrenna in version 2.7. Spent so much time with Galbrenna and learning about her story, despite the fact she has no direct relation to the Rover at all. Oh. She's not an old friend of the Rover or anything like that. The only character throughout the entirety of version 2 of Wuthering Waves that had a direct relationship to the Rover was Furlova. She was the only one. If this was solely about the Rover story, why did we focus on other character stories in the midst of the entirety of the 2.0 story? From 2.0 all the way to 2.8. Or 2.7 technically. Why? I'll tell you why. It's because Wuthering Waves clearly wants to focus on the Rover story, but they also want to focus on other playable character story as well. Because they can have cool character designs all they want to, but if these characters ain't got no substance behind that, then they're meaningless. They're just little trophies to collect and put on the shelf. Anyway, let's get started with the video.
I actually need to talk about this because this is actually fucking ridiculous, and a lot of people are genuinely stupid on the internet. So let's talk about this. There's a thing which is called storytelling, right? The way that you portray a story. And a lot of companies and a lot of franchises make their own way of, telling their own story, right? The thing is, there's a big difference between Hoyoverse and Kuro games, and people cannot understand that. So I'm gonna try to make it very simple for people to understand. In the case of Genshin Impact, you got a lost brother trying to reunite with his sibling, right? But the story itself is focused more on the world of Teyvat instead of that focal aspect of
bullshit. I'm gonna go ahead and call bullshit right now. No the fucking name. What happens is, in the process of the Rover's journey through Teyvat, as he was told to do by his sister, Lumine, the Abyss sibling, guess what? He's interacting with the world itself. Whereas, because this is something you got to understand if you pay attention to the story, Lumine does not care about the world of Teyvat. She only cares about the nation of Conria and the people who live there and the innocent lives that were unfortunately lost due to the cataclysm and being punished by the gods. So, she, along with the Abyss Order, they don't give a fuck about Teyvat. Traveler, on the other hand, because this goes back to the story of the Battle Pass, right? We know the story of the Battle Pass. The sibling, the Abyss sibling, is the one that went on the journey the first time. And now she's the queen of she's the princess of the Kingdom of Darkness, which is the Abyss Order / Conria. Whereas the Traveler, the second sibling, going out on his journey, he has to succeed where the first one didn't. Right? But we know that's a fictional tale. That's just an allegory to the Traveler's main story. So, to get back to it, the Traveler another thing to mention too, as with the Teyvat teaser trailer that we got before Genshin Impact released, if y'all remember that, legitly, we start at the beginning of the trailer with the Traveler and Lumine, right? And then we get to the end of the Teyvat teaser trailer. Guess what happens? The Traveler is there. He's being questioned by Dainsleif if he understood the meaning of his journey. And if he has, right now he has to fight Dainsleif and tell him to move aside so that he can grab hold of the threads of fate and reweave them himself. AKA, who weaves fate in the world of Genshin Impact? Is it Irminsul? Is it Celestia? The heavenly principles? The shades of the heavenly principles? Right? All these grand concepts, or rather, these individuals, in particular the people of Celestia, which is the shades of the heavenly principles, and of course the heavenly principles themselves, they're the ones who control fate in the world of Teyvat. They control it. They're the ones who created Irminsul for that exact purpose. So guess what that means? That means the Traveler's journey is not to just reunite with their sibling, but also to be the one to take the reins over this world and become its new god, essentially. Basically. It's even stated in their character information. If you go to the Traveler's information, character story information, it literally says that they're going to be one to ascend to the seat of God. So, to go ahead and slap this whole argument that he's making to the floor, it is a necessity for the Traveler, not for the traveler to integrate himself into this world while in the process of trying to reunite with his sibling. Both are necessary to the main plot. And guess what? After we finished helping someone with a crisis of their own, when it came down to their region or whatever, we either, because from Mondstadt, we didn't really learn much about Lumine there. Leeway, didn't learn much about Lumine there. Inazuma, didn't really learn much about Lumine there either. But then when we went to Sumeru, it was a game changer. The Dendro Archon had information related to Lumine. Guess what? She wasn't the only one. Wanderer / Child also, no, Wanderer / Scaramouche, my bad, also had information related to Lumine and Conria and how in the hell we appeared in Conria or crash landed in Conria, something like that, right? Then what happened a couple patches after that? We had the Dainsleif quest. What was the Dainsleif quest about in version 3? What was it about? Pretty sure it was about the 5 centers, right? Unless that was version 4. I'm trying to think. What Dainsleif quest did we have? Crap. I may need to pull up on my phone. Okay. Genshin Impact version 3.7. Search. Okay, 3.7 was the story event. So what about 3.6? Okay, version 3.6, it doesn't seem like that was a Dainsleif quest at all. It feels like there was like a new world quest. Okay, what about 3.5? Okay. 3.4. More world quest related lore. I swear we could have. I'm pretty sure we got a Dainsleif quest in version 3.4, did we not? Or version 3.6 at least. No, I don't think we got a Dainsleif quest in version 3.6. I think what we got was Nahita's story quest in version 3.6. I'm pretty sure. Because as I'm going back over this stuff, I'm not finding any Dainsleif quests and miss all that. Hold up, let's see. Special program. Okay. Let me think that my Bluetooths are on. Yeah, okay. So we didn't get a Dainsleif quest in version 3.6. I think this was like the first time we didn't get a Dainsleif quest at all. Oh, no wait, we did have a Dainsleif quest. I forgot. We did have a Dainsleif quest. I completely forgot. We most definitely did have a Dainsleif quest in version 3. It was it was not the bedtime story. It was the other quest where we met Kari Bear and shit. Hold up. About the Dragon King. This was important lore stuff. Okay, so what version was it? Was it version 5? It had to be version 5. It's the only thing that makes sense. Yeah, version 5. It was version 3.5 where we had another Dainsleif quest after the main story quest for Genshin. Because I'm pretty sure version 3.4 was the interlude chapter for the Wanderer, right? .4 special program. Let me scroll through it real quick. It was Lantern Rite. His story. Okay, Lantern Rite was here. So version 3.3 was main story content. Version 3.4 was Lantern Rite. Version 3.5 was Dainsleif quest. So we did continue pushing forward the Traveler's main story rapidly, right? From version 2, well, yeah, we still push forward with the main story related to the Traveler, but we also push forward the main story related to, you know, the overarching world of Teyvat and its importance and whatnot. Both things were happening at the same time. So this idea that Genshin does not focus on the main story related to the Traveler is bullshit. With all the Dainslift quests we've had up till now, it's the biggest slide of bullshit to claim that they don't do that.
On the world of Teyvat instead of that focal aspect of the story. The story itself focuses on long stretch storylines that whenever there's a main story quest, it takes like 6, 7, 8 hours to determine what's happening in the world.
Hold up.
It's stretch storyline.
But he was already caught in his first lie saying that Genshin Impact doesn't focus on the Traveler's personal story. Yes, the fuck they do. They blatantly do. If they didn't, why in the hell do we have Dainslift quests? That was directly labeled as Traveler interlude quests. Even when you go through the timeline of the game with what they have now, with the whole story for each and every region we've experienced, right? There are chapters dedicated for the Traveler and fleshing out their character more. First, learning more about them as a character, learning more about their relationship with me, fleshing out their relationship more so with Dainslift, and them learning more and more truths about what happened with Conria, which is, you know, directly tied to why Lumine keeps pushing away from Aether, despite the fact he keeps trying to reunite with his sibling, but she keeps pushing him away any chance she gets. Or we've missed her by a day or two because she was here previously, now she's gone. So this idea that Genshin does not do this is just bullshit. You have to explain why Dainslift quests exist for then, if they don't focus on the Traveler story.
The story itself focuses on long stretch storylines that whenever there's a main story quest, it takes like 6, 7, 8 hours.
It does not take 6, 7, 8 hours. The standard time of a quest is at least 4. Now with Nocry, what's going on for Act 6.3 for Nocry? Yeah, they keep you kind of locked into the quest throughout the entire playthrough, right? But there are moments there are gap moments within all that allows for you to exit out the story so that you can take a break. This with the Nocry story, this is the second time that they've done this thing where they transition you from the end of an act into the next act immediately with no cut in between. So you're kind of playing the beginnings of the first act of, let's say, Act 2 of the 2 patches or 2 acts that have been released in one patch, right? They're forcibly transitioning you into the next act without a break in between. But after the first 10 so minutes, you'll have a moment of break and then be like, okay, now I can exit out the story and pick this up again later.
That whenever there's a main story quest, it takes like 6, 7, 8 hours to determine what's happening in the world. It's blatant dog shit.
No, it's not. It's not dog shit. Especially if we talk about the filler patches. Let's go back in time with the whole filler patch shit, because I mentioned in his community post. There's all these quote-unquote filler patches have presented new lore to us that later ended up playing a role in the story, or being brought back up in the story because it held importance. You know, the book of Inkonomina that we got from that filler patch when the new sub-region Inkonomina was released with no new story content in relation to pushing forward the main story. Guess what? That whole book of Sun and Moon, it played a role later on down the line when we went to, let's say, Natland, when we learned about the idea of no, hold up, let me go backwards in time a little bit more. We learned about the dragon sovereigns thanks to that book, right? And then guess what happened? We go to Sumeru. Guess what we find? Dragon sovereign, the Dendro dragon. We go to Fontaine. Guess what? Another dragon sovereign. Natland, a land full of dragons. We even come across the Pyro dragon sovereign. You see the continuing trend here So those quote unquote filler patches did hold weight to the main story plot, to things that we'll either face or ally ourselves with. How's that bad?
World. It's blatant dog shit compared to anything else that I've actually experienced in my life.
Okay, cool. You can feel that way. I disagree.
No, I didn't play gacha games. I'm not too who that played 16 gacha games, so I could.
You don't need to play 16 gacha games to understand how a story, can carry on with its main plot while also focusing on other characters and continuing their stories as well, which we've seen with a lot of anime, shonen anime as well, right? How many shonen anime have you watched where the main character's story is still pushing forward while a secondary character's story is also being pushed forward and intertwining with the main character's story? We've seen this so many times. We've seen this in Naruto. We've seen this in JJK. One Piece. I haven't even really watched One Piece, but even then I know that shit happens. Should we really say Dragon Ball? I'm gonna count Dragon Ball. What's another show? What's another anime I've watched where they intertwine me? My bad. I've watched so many that I'm trying to piece together my brain right now. I guess Dan would count as well. What's another one I've watched? The Fate series. The Fate series does this all the time. Like, the main character of Fate Stay Night and Unlimited Blade Works and Heaven's Feel, like, they shift between each route. Fate Stay Night was about Shiro and Saber story. Then Unlimited Blade Works was about Shiro and Archer and Rin. More so Shiro and Archer. Right? Then Heaven's Feel, it was about Shiro and Sakura. Right? Again, side characters or important characters, their stories being directly tied and integrated with the main plot, relating to the main character's personal story. We've seen this happen all the time.
No, I didn't play gacha games. I'm not too who that played 16 gacha games, so I could.
Shoot, I got a game I played that's not even, a gacha game. I got two non-gacha games I play. Right? And it's Fate Samurai Remnant and Gravity Rush Remastered. In Fate Samurai Remnant, the main character is Iori. And him understanding and grasping this whole Holy Grail war that's happening. And the fact that he has to take part in it. He has his own personal story, his own personal ideals and shit that the story focuses on. But in the same breath, the story does not just like leave the side characters of the story in the trash bin just to focus solely on him, because the story isn't solely about him. Other important characters are also playing a role in this Holy Grail war, and they have their reasons for why they're a part of the Holy Grail war too. They have their own reasons for why they want their wish granted or whatever, right? And guess what? Fate Samurai Remnant spends time to focus on those characters too and integrate them into the main plot, so they either become a conflict of interest to Iori, the main character, or an ally to Iori, the main character. Two things can happen at the same time. There should be the story only chooses one over the other. Because if that's the case, if we're doing the story choosing one over the other, guess what? Why in the fuck are we getting side characters in the story to begin with? If the story is only about the main character. That means other side characters should not exist. No story should even focus on time or naming those side characters. They should just be unnamed characters who hold no weight at all, and the main character just keeps pushing through the story, learning things on their own by themselves, getting information by themselves without talking to people. It should just be them just in silence, going back to places they've been to, discovering anything, leaving that place, go to the next place, leaving that place, going to the next place until we get to the end of the story. Then basically is what he's arguing for.
Fuck shit compared to anything else that I've actually experienced in my life. No, I didn't play gacha games. I'm not too who that played 16 gacha games, so I can tell you what's the best gacha game story. But I did know a lot of different stories, like God of War, for example, or for example, Final Fantasy. But you know what's weird? You know what's actually weird? It's the fact that this story is focused more on the world itself instead of the actual progression of the narrative of the story, which is a reason.
Again, this is a lie. Because if you played the damn game, you know that Genshin Impact has pushed forward the Traveler's main personal story multiple times over the course of all these years. Did you think the last quest that was focused on the Traveler happened back in version 1 and then we didn't have more of those in later version updates? And we're only now touching back on it again in version 6? Are you fucking for real? If that's the argument he's making, it's a fucking dog shit argument.
Reason why I disliked it in the first place. I never wanted things to happen like filler patches to happen that showcase me different older characters from Mondstadt or Liyue just because you want to remind people that they exist. Obviously, it's not to sell more rerun banners. Of course not. It's not for that. There's a lot.
That can happen too. Like, two things can exist at the same time. Both showing off old characters in these limited time events where, you know, they can flesh out character relationships, create new character relationships, and so on. Case in point, Mona and Fischl. Mona and Fischl's friendship started in that limited time event back in version 1. Back in version 1, right? And then later version updates, when we came back to Mondstadt and saw Mona and Fischl, they're friends with each other. They're like, oh, she invited me to her parents' place so that we can have dinner together, right? And shit like that, right? Or she invited me to go to the library with her or some shit, right? Or they're talking about each other's personal subjects that they like engaging in, like Mona's astrology and Fischl's like reading favorite books and shit, right? So it's not just from a monetary reason for, you know, showing old characters again for rerunning banners. It's also a chance for the story to build character relationships as well. Now, the main problem with that is that those events are limited time events and they're not permanent. So those important character relationships that they've been building on doesn't exist. Well, it exists in a vacuum that's not being made permanent to like connect to the main plot. So whenever time we do mint these characters again, it's like, oh shit. Right? Case in point, here's another example of a character from version 1 coming back to play a role in the story, in the main story quest. Mona. Mona was mentioned in version 1. We saw her in version 1 in her story quest. Then she appeared again, right? In the limited time event. Well, actually, the limited time event for the Reconciled Stars was the first time Mona ever appeared, I believe. And then the second time was her story quest. I'm not really sure which one goes first. I can't remember. But anywho, I'm pretty sure the first one, Mona's story quest came first, then the Reconciled Stars event, and then that's when we met Fischl for the first time. So to continue the timeline, later down the line, we go to Fontaine. What happens in Fontaine? We're learning about the prophecy. In the final act, or the act before the final act for Fontaine, related to the flood and whatnot and what was going to happen, Mona appears in Fontaine, right? Because she's like, yo, I can feel like the fate that's gonna happen here is strong or whatever. I can't remember in detail what she said, right? But thanks to the Traveler asking Mona, could she get like in contact with her master or whatever, so that the Traveler can know what to do or some shit. She's like, okay, I'll do that. And guess what happens? The next morning or a couple hours later, we get a call, or we meet the disembodied voice of Mona's master, who tells us about Fontaine's fate and essentially alludes to us in a way of how we can prevent it from happening the way that it's described in the prophecy. And then, you know, it happens. We managed to do it. We managed to save the people of Fontaine, and while the prophecy also happened at the same time.
Obviously, it's not to sell more rerun banners. Of course not. It's not for that. There's a lot.
I don't know who's making that argument that is not about selling rerun banners too. Again, both can exist at the same time. Selling rerun banners and building character relationships.
A reason for that. There's also a lot of reason, let's say, that Varka has the same ult animation as Eula.
He does not have the same ult animation. Just because he does a spin move does not mean it's the same. He starts off with a dash, then he spins and slashes. And then, guess what? Depending on the element he's absorbed, it changes the effect of his ult. But you wouldn't know that because you didn't bother looking into that. Eula's ult starts off with her rising her sword up on her side. Boom, it changes into the pure cryo sword. Slow spin, camera spin around, slash. So, you're wrong. Sorry.
It has. Oh, it's because they are from the Knights of Favorius. It makes sense. There's a lot of reason for that as well.
You know what's so crazy? He's sitting here saying this. I saw a nigga, this Arikado dude, not Arikado, no, not him, Arikika, right? This dude who loves making comparison videos between Genshin and Wuwa. He made a whole video about how Jinshi and Changling has similar attack animations to each other because they're master and student. So it's a nice detail to show in their gameplay. But then he showed Skirk and Child and the difference in their gameplay, and essentially alluded that, oh, there's no connection here type shit between master and student, and is lame because of it, despite the fact he didn't use Child's elemental skill, which shows him switching between, you know, 2 short swords and a pole arm, which is the same thing with Skirk, where she switches between 2 long swords and a javelin. But we not gonna get into that apparently, right? So it's like, no, this can also exist too.
As Eula has. Oh, it's because they are from the Knights of Favorius. It makes sense. There's a lot of reason for that as well. Bro, shut the fuck up. That argument of law reason for Lantern Ride to continuously happen as a filler patch or Wind Boom Festival to continuously happen, that's a fucking retarded argument.
It's not a retarded argument. Shut the fuck up. Nope. Sorry. It is a 100% valid argument. The fact that we have it year-round, all the time, year-round, seeing characters that we met either in the main story plot or in their own character quests or in world quests or what have you, coming together to celebrate together to make the world feel alive, that's not a retarded take to have. It is blatantly obvious. It's stating the fucking fact. The fact that Withering Waves doesn't do this does make their characters feel dead. How about this? The Traveler's Anecdote Tales or whatever, where the Traveler gets to, you know, interact with old characters from previous regions who appear in Nodcry and have full-blown conversations with them, being like, hey man, how you doing? It's been a while since the last time we met. Or we find out that they're here in Nodcry for their own little personal reasons, whether it be business reasons, personal reasons, oh, they just here trying to find some inspiration for their music or so on. Like what are we talking about here? Withering Waves doesn't do this at all. That's why their characters don't feel like they exist in their damn world. How about Zenless Zone Zero? How many times in Zenless Zone Zero have we seen playable characters from version 1 appear in version 2? Whether it be main story stuff or them just like out and about, you know, at the store, at the arcade, at a food stall, what have you, just chilling. And we meet them on the street. That happens so many times in Zenless Zone Zero. So, no, this is an excuse that he's making. Withering Waves is fully capable. This great game that's better than Hoyoverse, they should be capable of writing their characters to be alive in their own story and own world. Shoot, one of the biggest criticisms people gave about Genshin Impact was the fact that how the world felt dead because the playable characters like weren't here. You will go to Mondstadt. There is no Mondstadt character that we've met that's a playable character that's even anywhere in any building, any stall, whatever, just sitting, chilling, enjoying life. We didn't ever see that for years on end. Then they introduced the Traveler's Anecdote Tales, where we get to meet these characters again, where we get to get caught up on what they've been doing since the last time we met. You know, making the world and the characters feel like they're alive and actually belong here, actually important to the story. Because if you're going to write a story with so many characters in it, you should at least give the time for these characters to also still, even no matter how small or big the time, it should still be enough time just for us to interact with them and be like, yo, how you been doing since the last time we met? There should be moments like that in Withering Waves. The fact that there isn't sucks.
Filler patch or a Wind Boom Festival to continuously happen, that's a fucking retarded argument, honestly. That being said, what's the difference between Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves in that regard? I'll tell you. In the case of Wuthering Waves, for example, it's focused on Rover. The narrative is Rover.
The narrative can be about Rover all he wants to. If that's the case, why the fuck are we sitting here having characters who are not directly tied to the Rover's personal story being flushed out in the quest then? Why the fuck did we spend time learning about Augusta? Why the fuck did we spend time learning about Yuno and the Rover being ultra obsessed with trying to save Yuno, despite the fact we only just met her in this same patch? Being like, oh, I gotta save her. Captain Save-A-Ho. Why? Why did we spend time learning about Lupa for? What connection did Lupa have to the Rover? She didn't have any. But the story felt the need to focus on her character, right? So if this story is solely about the Rover, then why are we focusing on other characters? Why are they deliberately writing other characters into the story to focus on them? Phoebe, why does Phoebe's character exist for? If this story is solely about the Rover. Zanny, why does she exist for? Carlotta, why does she exist for? Does she have a direct connection to the Rover because of something the Rover did in the past and can't remember? The answer is no. I can't really speak on Cantarella from her story quest, but I can't speak on her related to the main story quest, right? Guess what? Does she have a personal connection with the Rover from a past action that he did from like years ago that he doesn't remember? He or she doesn't remember now? The answer is no. So again, why is Wuthering Waves focusing on those characters then if the story is solely about Rover?
It's the idea that Rover supposedly is someone that is definitely not from that world that came to Solaris 3 to try to help it.
There is nothing in the information that alludes to the idea that Rover is not from Solaris 3. I disagree with that. From what we actually got, it seems that Rover is from Solaris 3. Blatantly, he is from this world. This is not the same thing with the Traveler, where the Traveler is not from Teyvat and is integrating with Teyvat and wants to save this world because he's become fond of this world. That's not the same. What's happening here in Wuwa's story is that Rover clearly has been in this world for a long time. He's been here since the founding of Jinzhou. There's a whole legend that talks about the Rover, right? The Rover's clothing, where they wake up in this world, right? They wake up with this clothing on, showing that there's a dragon symbol legitly on the Rover's outfit to show that they are from Jinzhou. If they were never from Solaris 3, why the fuck are they wearing clothing that belongs to this world? Why? They clearly are from this world.
Try to fight the lament, to try to fight the calamities. It's his own story. And if you don't like that, it's not my fault.
It's not about not liking it. No one's ever made that argument. I don't know where he's getting that idea from. It's never been about not liking Rover's story. It's about the fact that the writers themselves have done all this effort into put into these other characters that's not the Rover. But when it comes down to full-blown gun-holding, full-blown using these characters appropriately, they drop the ball on it. Again, back to the Lupa example, right? People were confused to why Lupa wasn't also invited by Augusta to help her with the hunt to fight this Thermodian or whatever, right? In the torn up wastelands, right? Where he fought the false sovereign, right? People were confused by that. Why in the hell Lupa isn't coming? Despite the fact Lupa, just like the Rover, won the tournament. They won as a team. What sense does it mean for Lupa not to appear in that story as well? She doesn't have to be a main focused character. She could have been a side character who's like, I'm also joining in with Augusta on this fight because she invited me, but I'll be taking the fight on a different battlefield, and then we'll reconverge once I handle the battlefields I'm tackling, and I'll come back with y'all. We could have had Augusta, Yuno, and Lupa along with the Vidias and the Rover going down on a 5-man mission and getting the job done, but we didn't. And the excuse they gave for why Lupa wasn't present was just cause. Nothing more, nothing less. And it's like, huh? Why just cause? She's from the same region and culture as Augusta and Yuno. They live within proximity of each other, for crying out loud. That's like saying in version 6 for Nodcry, right? Oh, Flynn's and Anefa, their story's completed and finished in version 6.0. But then they cease to exist as characters throughout from version 6.1, 6.2, and only now reappear in 6.3. Would that have made any sense? The answer is no, because these niggas live in proximity to each other. Anyway, let's continue.
to help it, to try to fight the lament, to try to fight the calamities.
Okay, cool. Again, back to that point. Rover trying to save the world of Solaris 3. So you're telling me in the midst of saving the world of Solaris 3, we can't have other playable characters, personal stories intertwined in the main plot of also trying to save their world, also trying to fight back against the lament? Rover is trying to find an answer to the lament problem, absolutely. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have other playable characters who also exist that also try to fight back against the lament. We saw this in Hong Long with Dragon Sorcerer, Genuine. Hopefully I pronounced his name right? He was with us when we fought the first Thornodian in the game. He had his own personal story that intertwined with the main plot of fighting against the laments, against the Thornodian. Why do you think we should not have characters like that? The entirety of Renaceda's cast wanted to fight back against the Thornodian because what the Thornodian was doing was affecting the entirety of Renacida. Why do you think we had characters do their Avengers Assemble moment in version 2.7 for crying out loud? This is, about the Rover's story trying to save this world from the lament, but he's not the only one being affected by the lament. The people who live in the world of Solaris 3 are also affected by the lament. Therefore, we get characters from different regions who have been affected by the lament in some way, shape, or form. Affected by a Thornodian in some way, shape, or form. Like, what are we talking about here? Should those character stories not intertwine with the main plot, the main goal of the Rover? In some way, shape, or form? To show that they're another victim of the lament, something that the Rover is trying to fight back against? Or that they're willing to be a helping hand to help the Rover fight against the lament? Like, come on now.
It's his own story. And if you don't like that, it's not my fault. It's not my fault if you do not like that. Okay? That being said, all of the things that happens around Rover. If you complain that the story focuses too much on Rover, that's because you're focused on.
It's not about complaining about the story focusing too much on Rover. Again, this is about the complaints people have about character interactions when all of them solely center around the Rover. And this goes to characters who are both directly tied to the Rover and not directly tied to the Rover. That's a complaint that people have given about the writing for these characters. Predominantly, all of them are female. Majority of them are female. That's the complaint. The complaint is not about, everything's surrounding around the Rover. That's not the complaint. The complaint is character interactions are solely dedicated to the Rover, and these characters haven't interacted with other characters beyond the Rover, and it's a problem. Because it just plays into the whole, this is just waifu bait simulator, collecting wives.
On stories that don't focus on the main character. Wow, shocker. I know, right? That being said, if for example Rover, let's say in 2.8, between 2.8 and 3.0, you get to a rift, you go to Honami City, you actually save, quote unquote, retrieve Shiza from said place, right? Shiza is a character from Wooden Waves. This character had to deal with her own, I don't remember the name of it anymore.
Overclocking?
Shiza has to deal with her own overclocking. That's
there we
the
go.
word for it. That she has to deal with her own overclocking, with her own delusions, and all of that. The thing is, she was ripped away from her school life and from her parents, right? When you come back from Honami City and you actually save her out, because technically speaking, Rover was just exploring that rift and he went to Honami City, just saying. When Shorekeeper told him about Lahai Roy, when you could get some extra memory, some input of what happened in the past with Rover's life, because he's wiping his own memory, and you should know that if you actually play the story, then he wants to know more of his past. That's why he wants to go to Lahai Roy. Why does Shiza want to go to Lahai Roy? Very simple. She got robbed from school life. That's a school, that's an academy. And she wants to meet her family. She wants to meet her parents. Once again, guess what? That's her reason to do it. It doesn't matter.
But the Rover was the same person who saved her as well, which is why it does matter. We spent all this time building up this character so that she can go home and meet with her family again, get back to her school life that she missed 2 decades worth of time for.
if she's going as well. This is Rover's story.
This is a bullshit take. I'm going to explain to you why, and I got evidence to prove it. Okay, so again, he's making the argument of, oh, her story began and concluded in version 2.8, and therefore it shouldn't continue more so and show us on screen of her reuniting with her family and getting back into her school life in version 3. This is bullshit because we had a prologue for version 3 and an Act 1 and an Act 2. So we had prologue, Act 1, and Act 2. Throughout all that, you're telling me we couldn't have a moment of the story showing us Chisa returning home and meeting her family again and integrating back into school life, which they could have done with the prologue, but chose not to? Here's my evidence that completely slaps this argument he's making to the floor about, oh, this just being the Rover story. Therefore, we shouldn't, the writers who've been building up Chisa's character to get to that endpoint of meeting her family again should not have spent time to focus on that in the midst of us, exploring version 3's academy, which we did a whole bunch before any conflict went off at all. So here's my counter argument. In version 5.8, the Nod Cried prelude, the journey home, where we met Anefa for the first time, and we fleshed out Anefa's character, right? This is the first time we met Anefa and what her goal was. Right here, here we go. I'm gonna play this for you.
If hunting down war machines is just sport to you, you guys really are built different. Still, guess I should tag along too, just on the off chance someone.
Mind you, Aoife right here, he appeared in. Excuse me, my bad. He appeared in a limited time event for the first time. And then he appears here in the main story content. This will let y'all know. And mind you, he was talked about in passing by Auroron back in what, version 5.1?
Ends up getting carried away.
Here you go. Check this out.
Where are they? Must find them. Traveler. Paimon. Then return home.
This was the first time Anefa appeared in the story. She had a message to give to Traveler and Paimon and return home. In the midst of this entire quest of the Nod Cry prelude, we learn more about Anefa as a character, both through her relationship for Nod Cry and the core that's in her chest, right? That revealed to be a dragon AI, dragon pearl type shit, right? Someone correct me on this in the comment section. And at the same time, we learn even grander lore that's about the world building as well in the fight that happened in this quest, where the dragon AI thing we fought, right, revealed that, oh, the moon sisters had abandoned us, had betrayed the dragonkin for that usurper. We learned that legitimately in the final battle of this quest. But this is the starting reason for her. She came to Nod Cry because she needed to find the Traveler, give them the message, and return home. And on top of that, her core was damaged, and she needed that to be fixed as well. So there was like three things going on here, and we achieved all three things throughout this entire quest. Here we go. I'm going to reveal something else. So after this version update, version 5.8, Nod Cry's prelude chapter, right? Then we go to 6.0. In 6.0, guess what? We're going to the new region that, Anefa is from. Guess what happens? Oh, you about to go off into a fight? Here's a party for you. You came back. Hold up, skip it up a little bit. Bye to our friends in Fontaine. In Sumeru, we had something similar. but I do not remember how we left Inazuma. Did we leave Inazuma saying goodbye to our friends? Or did we just leave? We just go? Oh yeah, this is another trend that's always been a thing in Genshin as well. Every region we leave, we always like say goodbye to our friends before we left. I couldn't remember what exactly we did for Inazuma, but I remember for Sumeru and Fontaine, we left with like saying goodbye to a friend, or a handful of friends before moving on to the next region. This is an interesting development. If they're like, oh, we got to change up how we do this. We can't just keep walking away without telling niggas we leaving out the door. You feel me? Very interesting.
Don't worry, we won't keep you long. Besides, everyone's there already. Shaska, Ian-san, Auroron, even the Pyro Archon herself.
You're invited too, Anefa. Shilonen has a special gift for you.
Accompaniment request accepted. Shilonen demonstrates excellent massage technique. My impression of her is exceedingly positive.
That's where these clankers. I'm not gonna lie. The fact that clanker has become a robotic slur is freaking hilarious. Oh man, that shit was stupid. They completely gave up on the lip sync. The thing is, the lip syncing was never like synced up to begin with, though. All right, let's continue. I'm trying to push it forward to the main point I'm trying to get at. Because most of this just land on happenstance. Oh, it just happened to line up, which I think that's fine. I don't think like it having a lack of like syncing of. What? A lack of...
Spit it out, then.
Oh, never mind. I'm gonna keep quiet.
They've set off.
Just as my calculations projected. About time I met this variable in person.
Oh, look at that. That was a matching lip sync. See? You see what I'm talking about? It flip-flops. It either matches sometimes or it doesn't.
You know, every time we head to a new nation, there's always a point where it suddenly dawns on Paimon. This is it. The next chapter of our adventure has begun.
Oh, wow.
This time,
hold up.
It was the moment she realized she just polished off the very last of her Saurus crackers. Should have stocked up better at the farewell party.
In other words,
crap.
Paimon has marked the geographic coordinates from 2 minutes and 40 seconds ago as the boundary between Natlan and Notcry. This deviates somewhat from the official coordinates stored in my database.
Paimon meant more in terms of how it felt on a psychological level. Anyway, what about you, Traveler? When did it really sink in for you?
Okay.
That actually kind of makes sense.
Bro, I didn't even get to choose the dialogue
Anefa?
box. What?
Come to think of it, maybe we should be...
I didn't get the chance to choose the dialogue box because we were on the boat and we were already pushing forward, so there was no time for me to like click any dialogue. It was just gonna do it automatically.
Asking the other way around. So, when you came over to Natlan, what was the moment you felt like you'd left Notcry?
I gotta wait.
In that case, probably when my sensors could no longer detect the moon's power.
The moon? You mean that one we can all see in the sky?
Negative. I was referring to... here we are. Paimon.
Oh, wow!
Okay. I'm gonna wait for what I got to say until we get off this damn boat, because it's not letting me speak.
Paimon, Traveler. Welcome to Notcry.
Oh, there she go. Now, no someone's gonna be bitching about something. Oh, look, it wasn't cinematic, therefore it was bad. My guy, it was a panoramic view of the area to show off the characters in the area that we were going to, experience the story with, and show off the location as well, which is Nasha Town, where most of the plot is focused around.
That must be Nasha Town up ahead.
Please, for the love of God,
you were telling us
stop
about on the
this
way
damn
over,
auto
right?
mode. Okay, finally. Okay, so there's that. We return to Notcry, right? We learn a little bit more about Notcry thanks to Anefa, since she is from Notcry, just like how Chisa is from Lahairoi, right? But the difference between Chisa and Anefa is that the main goal of Anefa that I showed you earlier, which was her getting the message to the Traveler and returning home, and getting her Dragon Core thing fixed, right? as we progress, we spend a good deal of time in the beginning of 6.0 meeting. We met Flynn's, we met Anefa, of course. No, we met Flynn's for the first time. Then we met, who's this? We met Llama as well. Or Llama. Then we met Dory. We met Sandrone. Then, guess what? The thing that Anefa was trying to do since version 5.8, it comes full circle here, and we get to see it on screen of Anefa returning home to Aino. Let's play that. Let's get it. Right? Because this was something she was trying to do. The place Aino and I call home.
Whoa! So many machines that Paimon's never even seen before. And then there's all these little robots. Did Aino build them all?
That is correct. It looks like Aino has created 3 more little bots since I've been gone.
Aw. Well, you were gone for quite a bit. She must have missed you.
I missed her too.
Yeah, I do not gonna know what's going on with this fucking lag right now.
I want her to see what I've become.
Let's not keep her waiting any longer then. Come on!
Look at that. She wants Aino to see what she's become, aka her evolution. Because in the 5.8 story, guess what? Anefa got her vision for the first time, or her moon wheel. So not only did she evolve as a character, we fleshed out her character and whatnot. She's now getting to do the thing that she said she was going to do again and return home to her family, which is Aino. And we get to see it on screen when we went to the new region that is Nodcry, right after Natlan. Check it. Just give it a minute, because I play on the PS4. I play on the PS4, so the loading screen takes a little bit.
Aino, I'm back.
Sure, wait, stop on her face.
Inefa? You're back significantly earlier than I expected. Like a whole 30 minutes at least.
Oh my god, kid genius.
Everything went very smoothly, which saved me quite a bit of time, so I know. Could you turn around for a moment?
What you done do?
I know.
I've been on my best behavior the whole time you've been gone. She's got chocolate all over her mouth.
Already, as you saw, again, Anefa, a character that was revealed to us in version 5.8, who came from Nodcry to deliver a message to the traveler and return home, and of course get herself fixed and solve her own personal problem related to that as well, right? All that happened in version 5.8. We continued her little story of her returning home and meeting again with Aino in version 6.0. And guess what? Anefa and Aino have been 2 consistent characters throughout version 6, all the way up to where we are now in version 6.3. Everyone's putting their hand in the jar to try to help with with the crisis related to Rear, like how Anefa stopped the Kuvaki cannon from like hitting Revere so that he'll absorb all that shit, which he didn't absorb all of it. He absorbed enough of it though. But she's still Anefa, character from version 5.8, still was a character who came in when we needed her to like play on the get on the court and really show up and show out. She came and freaking lifted up the freaking Kuvaki cannon so it can stop hitting the Traveler and Flynn's, to prevent them from dying from that, of course, but also prevent Rear from absorbing that shit. So why in the hell could we not have something similar to Chisa, appearing in the story for 3.0? Then we get to see her meet her parents, and they could have like some bombastic animations for her parents as NPCs or whatever, right? If they were going to be NPCs, right? And then have her also, because like after we meet Anefa, right, and shit, we leave Anefa here and Aino here, and we continue forward into Nodcry, going to the Frost Moon Scions after meeting, Llama earlier, because we want to like learn more about this area and help them out with their stuff they had going on. Excuse me. Sorry. But you get the point, right? If Genshin, the bad game, can sit here and do this, there is no excuse for the good game, the superior game, Wuthering Waves, not to be able to do this with their writing for their characters. There's no excuse. Why the hell didn't Chisa appear in the story? Because she was at the school as well with us. Why didn't Chisa appear to help us fight the Void Worms? Why? What excuse is there for that? The answer is there is no excuse. Now let's get back to the story. Let's get back to the video.
It doesn't matter if certain character like Lupa, for example, shows up and shows you how Septimon really is like, because it's Rover's path, it's Rover's story. So whenever there's the hunt decree, or what, not the hunt decree, the new hunt or whatever the fuck name is for 2.8, 2.6, if whenever that thing happens, it's outside of Septimon. It doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. It's the...
Wait, what?
It's outside of Septimon.
Oh, he's talking about the hunt thing that was in 2.6. My nigga, it's within the realm of Septimon. Septimon had its own dedicated area along with its city. Again, she is a warrior just like everyone else in Septimon who fights in the arena. The idea that she couldn't go to the hunt and squabble with the monsters of the Thassa Discords and even the false sovereign is a bullshit excuse. Just because it's a Rover story does not mean that these characters just suddenly should stop ceasing to exist. That goes for any main story of any story. It's not even just Genshin, it's not just Hoyo games, not just Wuwa as well. To any piece of content where the writers are deliberately making side characters and having them also play a role in the story, whether it be for the story here or for a future chapter, there should still be those characters existing. They should still exist. There's no reason why Lupa couldn't also be appear in the 2.6 story, other than the writers probably didn't feel confident in the idea of like being able to juggle both Augusta, Avidius, and finally Lupa. So they just cut it just to be like, okay, we're gonna focus on Avidius, Augusta, and That's probably more like the reason why Lupa wasn't also, thrown into that story as well. Like, she didn't need to play a big role in that story. She should have just appeared to be like, yo, I'm fighting in a different battlefield from y'all. I'm having another mission that Augusta has sent me out on. After I won the tournament, she saw how strong I am, and she saw the strength of my conviction and my resolve type shit. And she asked me to join as well. Simple shit, but they decided not to do that for whatever weird reason.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. It's the narrative of Rover. It doesn't matter the Jinzo characters, the Huanlong characters, not being shown anymore in the story because it doesn't make sense to show up in the story in Lahai Roi. It doesn't make sense for...
It would make sense if, let's say, Wandering Swordsman, I keep forgetting his name, how to pronounce his name. If there was someone in Septima, in Lahai Roi that he was hunting down, right? Because, like, his job decreed it. Or let's say Scar. Let's say Scar appears in Lahai Roi, right? Guess what? The Honglong character known as Wandering Swordsman, he would have every reason to go to Honglong, to go to Lahai Roi, to go hunt Scar and kill his ass. Because he tried to do that in Renacida when he escaped from Honglong the first time. So they can make a reason for why these characters can appear in another region. Most definitely. Same thing with Nodcry right now. In Nodcry, we have characters from old versions from versions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 appearing in the Nodcry story, which is version 6. Child was a character from version 1. Scaramouche was a character from versions 1, 2, and 3. Arlecchino was a character from version 4. Albedo was a character from version 1. So they can make a reason that, makes sense for these characters to appear in Lahai Roi. They can. Or just appear in any other moments in the story in the future. Right? It's just up to the writer of whether or not they want to bring those characters into this and play a role. This is just that simple. Oh, hold up.
Phoebe, for Carlotta to show up right now because they were from the Rinashita arc. If you cannot understand this, if you cannot fathom that these characters don't need to be in the story because it's not focused on that, because it's the main focus of the story is Rover, then you are the problem. You are in the wrong. You are playing
I'm sorry, you're in the wrong blatantly. This idea that the story can only focus on the main character and that's it, and that other characters that we met in the past should not appear in future story beats for whatever reason the writer wants to give them is stupid as shit. It's blatantly stupid as shit. As I just explained with the wandering swordman hunting down Scar. If Scar appears in Lahai Roi, it makes every sense for why that wandering swordman would appear in Lahai Roi, being like, yo, I'm coming after Scar. I'm coming to take his life. He would have every reason to be there. And who would decline his help? Nobody.
main focus of the story is Rover, then you...
Here we go. Here we go. I can add, there's some more other characters who could also appear in Lahai Roi as well. What about Baiji, a 4-star character from Hong Long? She's like a doctor / scientist. The same thing goes with, what's his name? Mortefi, right? He's also like a doctor / scientist. Who's to say that both of them didn't went to to the academy in Lahai Roi? Who's to say that they couldn't be invited back for like a lecture speech or an event that they have been called back or asked to join for their participation to help the academy with for XYZ? Who's to say that the writers could not do that? That would be in my opinion, that would be pretty cool to bring those characters back to, have them get some screen time. Because the screen time they got was like, it was okay, but like, it wasn't nothing, worth flapping the gums about. They could have spent time fleshing out those two characters as well, because they didn't really have much character anyway. You see what I'm saying? There's an easy way for them to do that. The easy way for them to make old characters be relevant to the new plot by just giving a reason. Make it a reason that actually makes sense story-wise. Or just relate to that character's personal information for why they're here. It's not difficult to do. And this idea that they shouldn't do that because this should only be focused on the Rover is dumb. We can have the Rover story going on while simultaneously, trying to save this region from the threat of the Fraxidus or the threat of the Lament or Thornodian. All this can happen at the exact same time as each other, which we've seen them do in version 2. We've seen them do that even in version 1. Granted, it was kind of quick because all that built up, because that happened in Act 5 of version 1.
You are the problem. You are in the wrong. You are...
Another thing too, Shorekeeper. We learned more about Shorekeeper as well, and the Black Shores when we went to the Black Shores location to, so that the Rover can learn more about themselves, or rather, this is when they learned the truth about themselves. That they, made the Black Shores. They created the group. And created Shorekeeper as well.
Playing the game wrongly. It's that simple. If you are upset about that, and if you're upset that there is no Windbloom Festival or, or Lantern Rite Festival where you go back to one log to make that. You know what happened in 1.2? Which is kind of funny. In 1.2 and in 2 point something, I think it was when it was like the full troop. I think someone said something about that, but I don't remember. Don't quote me on that. There were a lot of surveys that people complained about that. Nobody wants that shit. Nobody wants those type of...
And we saw the negative effect of that, where we have characters who exist in the game with no reason to exist and no writing worth talking about. So they're just characters who are just here just to look pretty. That's the negative effect about it. Just because people wanted that didn't want it in the past does not mean people can't want it now. Like what? That's like saying if, let's say for some whatever reason, players wanted the skip button removed. Let's say that. Let's say Wuwa players, for some weird reason, wanted the skip button removed. And they removed the skip button. And then later down the line, by like a year, a couple months later, people are like, no, bring the skip button back. It's called people have the ability to change their opinion of something they initially thought was bad. People can do that.
Type of filler acts. So even the filler, quote unquote, filler patches like 2.1 technically have something about the story, or 2.5 it had something about the story, or
2.5 wasn't filler. Wait, are you deeming 2.5 for Lova as filler content? I hope you're not deeming that as filler content, because that was anything but filler content. It was pushing forward the main plot of Renacida, what was going on, and simultaneously fleshed out more of the fact that Rover had a relationship with Lova as well. So it's like, how are we deeming that filler content? Why? Because we didn't get some full-blown expose of the Rover's character in like this mass depth, learning about everything about them in one full sitting, like the start of their life to where they are now? Is that why you're deeming it as filler? Because if that's the case, that's a bad argument. That's terrible.
one technically have something about the story, or 2.5 it had something about the story, or 2.3 it had something about the story. So it makes sense. It helps build up the world, but it doesn't mean that it should be around that. Okay? You don't need to go back to fucking Huanglong to showcase Jian so in order to sell his rerun, because lore explains why we should.
This argument is so bad. It's so fucking stupid. Especially consider the fact that Wandering Swordsman alluded to something story related may happen again in Honglong, which then would result in us going back there. Knowing that to be the case, it's like, what are we talking about here? They could easily make us go back to Honglong. They could easily have two story beats go on at the same time from the main story plot of the version and another side story plot that's also being introduced in the main version, right? That's us in an older region coming back there, handling whatever problem that's going to happen, that's dealing with that, and see that plot extend itself forward into a future plot of the main story. They could easily do that. Like, for example, how we went to in Star Rail, we went to the Lafu, right? In Star Rail, right? We went to the Lafu, left the Lafu, went to, Penacony? Then after the Penacony story, we went back to the Lafu again and played that whole story dedicated to that, where we, get introduced to one of the new generals, one of the generals that we're talking about in passing, right? So it's like, they can easily do that for Wuthering Waves. They can easily do that. But again, Wuwa's story structure is just weird, or how they're setting it up is weird, because we went from version 1.4 of Wuwa and jumped straight to 2.0, which we could have like expended some more time flushing out the world and new concepts and shit from like version 1.5 all the way to like version 1.8, seeing as version 2 went from version 2.0 all the way to 2.8. We could have done the same thing. They could have done the same thing for version 1 of Wuthering Waves, but they didn't. They just hop, skip, jump straight to 2.0 because of like player decline, and they wanted to get players back into playing the game. So they went to Renacida and introduced the flying mechanic, which hyped a lot of people up, made a lot of people come back to the game.
That it should be around that, okay? You don't need to go back to fucking Huanglong to showcase Jian so in order to sell his rerun, because lore explains why we should go back to Huanglong.
Bro, you won't even like the idea of these characters coming back to play a role in the main story either, if it meant that these characters were being rerun as well. Like, to you, these characters shouldn't appear in the story at all. It don't matter if it's going back to an old region, or if it's limit time event, or if this character is appearing, an old character from previous version, or like from last year appearing in the current version of this new story. To you, all three routes that I just explained should not be a thing at all. And we should only focus solely on the Rover, as if that's what's happening in the story, where it's a complete contradiction, because the story is actually focusing on not just the Rover's character, but also other characters as well, like Lene, like Mornay, the new character in Act 2. I haven't played Act 2 yet, by the way.
Unlock for a festival just for that to happen. Brother, I stopped playing Genshin Impact because of that. I don't want that type of shit. I don't want to consume that type of shit. If you want to consume that type of shit,
cool, then skip it then. Simple. Again, we had Dainsleif quests that focused on the Traveler's character, his relationship with his sister, and also his partnership with Dainsleif. We've had that for years. Learning more about Conria, learning more about the reason why the Traveler's sister is doing what she's doing. Learning more about Dainsleif's personal beef with the gods. We learned about the creation of the Abyss Order, which is an important faction in Genshin Impact's story. So, again, both can exist. Why is it bad for the story to do that? Why? Just cause you don't like the fact that we deviated slightly, that the main story isn't like constantly rapidly giving us main character information all the time, 24/7, every damn update patch? Like, what the fuck?
because of that. I don't want that type of shit. I don't want to consume that type of shit. If you want to consume that type of shit, sure, keep consuming.
Cool. Again, just don't play that stuff and just wait till the main story comes back to kick back in. Or the Dainsleif quest, which happened regularly and periodically.
I don't want that type of shit. I don't want to consume that type of shit. If you want to consume that type of shit, sure, keep consuming Genshin Impact. Keep consuming filler patches. I don't want that.
What filler patches did we get that didn't end up playing a role in the main plot? From its lore to its characters that they revealed and showed off. The answer is, we got all that. All that shit from those quote-unquote filler patches ended up coming right into the main fucking plot. So regardless of how you like it or not, it had importance. That's the point.
I want a progressive narrative that actually keeps on improving. I want to see what happens next with Rover. Okay? It's that simple. And these people...
We can have both. Why should we only have one? Are the Wuwa writers so incompetent that they can't do both at the same time? They clearly are doing both when they're sitting here writing character story quests, integrating it into the main fucking story plot. Again, shall I mention Augusta, Yuno, Lupa, KallaTheYapper, Frolova, Chisa, so on, so forth, Agabrena. Like, I can list so many characters in Wuthering Waves whose main story is focused into the main plot of the version update. While simultaneously, we are learning stuff about the Rover's past. We can do both at the same time. Or rather, Wuthering Waves writers can do both at the same time, and they've proven it. There's no reason why we only should focus on just the Rover.
People don't understand this. It's quite infuriating how these people are so dumb. Because what they really want is a game that is like Genshin, but not Genshin. What they really want...
Bro, the same thing applies to fucking Wuthering Waves too. Niggas want Genshin to turn into Wuthering Waves when it comes down to its combat. They want Genshin to have the swap mechanic. They want Genshin to have the parry mechanic, and so on and so forth. But Genshin doesn't need to have that. But people will argue to high heaven that it should.
Want is that type of story writing in Wuthering Waves. And when they don't have it, obviously they're gonna get upset about that. It's fucking ludicrous.
I mentioned the Chisa point and the Anefa comparison earlier, so I don't need to repeat myself.
It's fucking ludicrous. I made a post about that situation. I even wrote it down. If you're used to however story writing being the norm for shoving a playable or future playable character on the story just for the purpose of exposition, then...
Shoving? You mean showing off? Not shoving. Showing.
Maybe the way you want a story of a different gadget to be is just silly. Nitpicking little things don't help either. If you want to say this isn't...
How is that a nitpick when it's a valid fucking criticism? Case in point, here, I got one for you. Phoebe. Now, he's like, oh, Phoebe shouldn't appear in no other future story plot. Look, go ahead, shut the fuck up. Bro, Phoebe was a character whose whole entire character centered around her religious faith in the order, right? Of Renacida. Tell me why it is that Phoebe did not appear in the version 2.5 story, which was directly tied to the Order and what they were doing in that underground facility. Why didn't she have a interaction with Fenrico, the supreme head of their religious order? Why? Why wasn't Phoebe the one to retrieve the relic, the first relic from Fenrico, and give it to Rover in version 2.7? Why? Why did they hand that off to the new character, Wandering Swordsman, to do instead of Phoebe? Phoebe's whole story revolved around that, and they didn't even follow through with it when there were blatant opportunities for them to do it, but they didn't. That's suddenly a nitpick now? That's a valid criticism, my guy.
Isn't how I thought it should have been, doesn't mean the source material will always be bad. This only means you're creating a headcanon with certain expectations for the story you are invested that, when not met, you get disappointed or even upset about. Take the example of...
Talk about the pot calling the kettle black. Bro, did you not just do that same shit for Genshin Impact where you was upset at the fact that we didn't push for it with the Traveler's main story related to their personal story? Despite the fact the game blatantly contradicts this by having Dainsleif quest that focuses on that, which those quests are directly intertwined with the main plot and the overarching plot.
Of Shiza in 3.0 Act 1. There's no fucking reason to show more of her. Most of the time, Rover isn't even on the academy, yet people are focusing a lot on Shiza.
Hold on. Take the example, there's no fucking reason to show more of her. Most of the time, Rover isn't even on the academy, yet people are focusing on Shiza not being shown as much and being sidelined. Bro, he is pushing back on an 80-20 issue. No, this is like a 90-10 issue. He's the 10% versus the 90% of people who are like, no, Chisa's character should have been shown on screen, reuniting with her family and getting back into, school life at the same time as Rover also getting into this whole school life thing as well. It would have been great to have both of them on screen, getting back into it, or rather, Chisa getting back into it and Rover being first introduced to it. No, I was right the first time. Getting back into it. We could have met Linnae as well. We could have met Mornay as well. Linnae and Mornay. All right. We could have met those two characters in the midst of Chisa and Rover, getting reintegrated into the school life stuff. Right. It would have been great to see. They can do it. It's possible. How is this billion-dollar company not able to do this? Why are we giving excuses for this?
She's not being shown as much and being sidelined. There's a false expectation that arriving to a new area with new world building and new characters, that Rover would need the help of Shiza, who is trying to adapt to this new area as much as Rover is. Why would she matter to the Roy arc even?
I'll answer that for you. First and foremost, from what we learned about from Chisa, there is like this prejudice against resonators that exists in Lahairoi. Or maybe her city, Hanami. The city of Hanami. Who knows if we're going to get the city of Hanami and the actual people that live there. Right? Who knows? Unless that rift was just Hanami itself. But anyway, right? There was that whole thing related to Chisa. Why couldn't we see something like that in Lahairoi? Why about Chisa giving a explanation of like, oh, this is what happened here at this school, this and the third. There's different studies for this, different studies for that. Oh, I remember that area. That's I remember that doctor. That's Mr. Luke. I remember him. Oh, there's Morny. I remember her too, from 20 years ago. And have character interactions between them to get caught up with each other and be like, what happened to you? You was gone for so long. We thought you had like died or something, right? Chisa could be the bridge to introduce. Chisa could have been the character. Chisa could have been the bridge to introduce the Rover to new people of Lahairoi and give him a bit of a rundown of what to understand when it comes down to this school or this academy. We could have had that. And then simultaneously, boom, we run into the reckless Linnae as well. and we start learning more about her as a character as well. After Chisa does her thing as being this bridge to help the rover get new character interactions and understand things about the academy, whether it be certain rules or about the cassette tape stuff. All this he could have learned this from Chisa, in the 3.0 prologue, but they sidelined her entirely. Like, they could have easily done that, just like how Anefa, again, the Anefa example, version 5.8 was when she appeared. And guess what? When we go to 3.0, she's introducing us to Not Cry and its culture. They could have clearly done that with Chisa.
The way some people are trying to search for a way to pinpoint their personal grudges due to their own expectations not being met, instead of taking...
It's not even the expectations of their expectations being met, some headcanon expectations being met. It's by the fact that the story itself set this shit up. Again, I even mentioned this in my comment to his community post that he made on YouTube. The story set up Chisa to reunite with her family and all that dandy shit and getting back into school life. There is no reason to sideline that when they could have showed it off in the prologue of 3.0. And then guess what? In Act 1 is when we should have met Lene. Act 2, meet Mornay. Or, focus on Mornay. Because we met Lene and Mornay or whatever in Act 1. Or prologue? I can't remember which one. I think it was both. But you get the point I'm making. There's no reason why they couldn't have done this for Chisa. There's no reason why other than just cause. This is people's expectation of what was going to happen for Lahaira and for Chisa's character was made purely because of the writers, not because of people's headcanons.
Taking what the story is shows that there's a lot of different interpretations to a story, and that perhaps these people are focusing more on what it could have been instead of what it is. As you may know, this is the reality of it. And you know what's even more upsetting is the fact that these people still don't get it. They don't get it that there's differences of how stories are being made. A guy, his name is Fal Ruvan. He himself made this research. So yeah, I mean, kudos to this guy. He tried to focus on Wuwa 3.x against Genshin's 3.x, the amount of fillers and the amount of time that was made on the story. As you can see, there's a lot more story in Wuwa, even if the story is not as extensive as as Genshin's.
You mean better written? That's the word you're looking for. And yes, it is. Before someone tried to argue me that Wuwa is better written, it's not. The fact that Wuthering Waves story does not feel connected to each other at all, from one region to the next, and so on and so forth, it just feels like disconnected chapters, which is a criticism I've seen people give. Is like, if that doesn't tell you the problem with Wuwa's writing, I don't know what else does. We can have more story pushing forward content if we want to. Hold up. What was this? 2. Main story. 1.1 main story. 1.4 main story. Story. 2.0 main story. 2.1 main story. 2.4 main story. 2.6 main story. 3.0 main story. Again, limited time event 2.7. It played into version 3.0 because that's when we met Nahida for the first time in version 2.7, and we met her officially in version 3.0. Again, this goes to show that Genshin, when it comes down to limited time events, they know how to set up limited time events and connect it to the main plot, and to keep the plot pushing forward. Giving time for them for breathing room in between chapters, so we don't get hit with rapid story, and then have fuck ups in the writing. Now, version 2.0 story for Inazuma, there was a lot of fuck ups in the writing. There's no doubt of that, right? Which, in that case, it could be argued that maybe Inazuma's story could have lasted more than 3 updates. Maybe could have been 4 or 5 updates long. To properly flush out and get character writing done in a better way.
As you may know, the 6 hours, the 5 hours,
which is why we started seeing recently in recent years that Hoyoverse is starting to make year-long stories. Right? We're starting to see that year-long stories while also simultaneously still having limited time event quests that reveal new characters and introducing into the into the main plot later down the line. Like fucking Not Cry is going to be a year long. Fucking for Star Rail, the entirety of version 3 was a year long story. For we don't even know if we're going to get that again in version 4 for Star Rail. Zenless Zone Zero season 1 story extended from version 1.0 to version 1.4. Season 2's main story has extended from version 2.0 to 2.5. And then we're going to have 2.6 and 2.7. And then, boom, we're going to move on to version 3 for Zenless. Right? So it's like, 2 can exist at the same time. We can have limited time events happening at the same time as the main story plot, while also pushing the main story plot forward with each and every update.
Hours plus with the fucking mumbling and bullshit storylines with the Paimon being like, "So Traveler, what I'm saying is," and then she repeats whatever the fuck they already said. Yeah.
Paimon doesn't do that shit anymore. Just to let you know. But he wouldn't know that because he doesn't play the game.
52 hours. 52 hours of main story. 52 hours of main story progression compared to 27.5 hours. And you're telling me that this is the same thing? This is not the same thing. It's a different way of building a story. And if you're getting mad that Wuwa is not focusing on the world building because there's not many filler patches that help out the lore.
You can do world building both in filler patches, limited time event stories, and in the main story. I don't know who's arguing that there's not enough filler patches. I mean, I would have preferred more patches in version 1 to flesh out more of these concepts that they introduced in season 2, such as the whole anchoring concept. That could have been a concept they introduced back in version 1 of Withering Waves, and then introduce it again in version 2 with Yuno. And then they also used that again for version 2.7 for Rin to see the story when it came out to Galbrana, but they completely misused the concept that they themselves created by bullshitting it. And it was just like, bro, what the crap?
Lore, help out the world building, it's kind of silly. It's genuinely
It's not silly at all. I don't know how you can take that as silly. It's fucking not silly. Especially if this game is meant to last for more than 5 years. Yeah, within 5 years time, within a 5 year time span, you can flesh out the world building from world quests, limited time events, new release of new sub-regions, or whatever. You can do that. If Hoyoverse can do it, why can't Wuwa? Oh, just cuz? Like, let's be real. No one would dare to accept this argument if we're talking about Genshin's combat versus Wuthering Waves combat. People would be, as we see now, they go to high heaven about why Genshin should be doing the exact same thing as what Withering Waves is doing when it comes down to their combat. From the parry mechanic to the counterattack mechanic. And so on. Right? The fact that people are making this argument acceptable for the story, but they don't keep that same tone when it comes down to Genshin at all, it's like, it's such a double standard.
Really silly. And to think that a story that focuses on Rover has no world building, that is an ignorant take. That is an ignorant take of someone who doesn't really know Wuwa's story. There is a way to showcase only Rover because it's his own point of view, because he's the protagonist, while also understanding the world around him. You don't need to completely butcher his own story to butcher Wuthering Waves' story in order to show the world. That is...
They've never done that. No one's even asking for that. I don't know where you get that idea from. No one's asking for them to butcher the Rover story. When the Rover is directly connected to the lore of this fucking world anyway, so it wouldn't even be butchering. It'll be doing 2 at the same fucking time. As we've seen when it came down to their interaction with the Sentinel back in, Jinzhou, or their interaction with the Sentinel in Renacida, and then that device, that civilization capsule bullshit. Like, huh? Clearly, 2 things can happen at the same time. Ain't nobody asking for the world building to only be built up and leave Rover's character behind. They're doing 2 at the same time. Clearly. Genshin Impact does the same thing too. Focusing on the main story and also building the world building at the same time. Doing 2 things at the same time. For crying out loud.
That is what happens, in my eyes, in my point of view, that's what happens whenever you have a fucking bumfuck festival filler patch in Genshin Impact. or any other Hoyo game, because that's what they do, just to sell more characters. And before you say that I said the same thing for example, in the case of, oh, there's a new character that is Yuno that shows up in this main story quest, and then she goes away and you never see her again. Guess what, motherfucker? Main story quest is different than a fucking filler patch that serves no purpose other than showing a new character.
Bullshit. Because I even disproved his point on this when I mentioned how, Scaramouche, a character from a limited time event quest that he claims had no importance to the main narrative of Genshin Impact's story. Guess what? Wanderer appeared again in version 2. Wanderer then appeared again and we fought him in version 3. And in that same version, he swore to get his revenge on the doctor who manipulated him and killed his friend, Niwa. Which is the reason why, the Wanderer joined the Fatui in the first place. Because of the doctor and his manipulation. And then guess what? Version 6. He's here in the main story helping us fight the Torre, the doctor. So no, this idea that Genshin Impact's limited time events held no weight to anything in the main narrative of the story is pure bullshit. Guess what? The whole concept of dreams, we got that from that limited time event from version 2.7, that summertime event. That whole concept of dreams. And in that same event where we're learning about this concept of dreams in Genshin Impact, guess what? We meet Nahida in that same limited time event. And guess what? Version 3, the concept of dreams and meeting Nahida, we do that again in version 3 for Sumeru, because it's a part of Sumeru's world building, of its nation, of its lore, and even to Nahida as a character who has the ability to enter people's dreams. Like, bro, what are we talking about here?
Character like Xiao, that it doesn't technically matter to the grand story arc of the main story quest. It doesn't fucking matter.
It does.
If you're upset about that,
it does fucking matter. This idea that it doesn't, despite the fact we have blatant proof saying otherwise to this claim that he's making, it's fucking hilarious.
I'm sorry, get some tissues. It's not my fault if you're upset about that. Your pixels don't matter in the all grand scheme of things to the story quest.
These characters should matter in the grand scheme of Withering Wave's story, seeing as Rover is trying to save their fucking world, for crying out loud. What the fuck? You know what's so crazy to me? As I'm sitting here thinking about it, this is completely antithetical to a point that Tectone made a couple years back, where we had the Chasm quest released for the first time. Tectone was like, he preferred that the quest focused on playable characters and shit, because those playable characters mattered more than the NPCs, right? Because the story is about the playable characters, right? So, but then you have Blazer on here. He's arguing that the playable characters outside of the Rover does not matter to the grand scheme of the story, and the only character that matters in the story is Rover, which is not true. It's like, this is crazy to sit here and see in real time.
It's as simple as that. This is not trying to defend the company.
You are defending it, though. You're defending bad writing.
This is literally understanding that there's different ways of having stories being focal to the point of the game or not. In my case, I prefer the story progression of the main story quest. If you prefer...
That's fine. Guess what? Again, both can exist at the same time. We can have a progression with the main story, but also following through on character writing that they set up. Following through on world building that they set up from a previous version update and bringing it into the main plot now. They can do both. If Hoyoverse can do it, there's no reason why Wuwa can't do it.
Or something else, if you prefer the world of Teyvat instead of focusing on the main story, if you prefer Lantern Rites and Bloom Festivals and all that shit, you can like that. There's a reason why I'm not playing Genshin anymore. I mean, there's a lot more reasons. It's not just that. It's also the combat. It's also the fucking shitty-ass systems that never changed. And
they've changed certain systems for the better of the game.
I mean, even the combat system, the elements, I mean, it's the same shit. I mean, they added Dendro, and then they added the DLC elements that are behind the heroic.
Yeah, that sounds like, expanding the elemental reaction system, doesn't it? Something, people want them to do. There's people who want them to add new elements. There's people that want them to add new elements or reactions. You know, expanding the combat system a little more so we have a little more diversity.
Characters, which are the lunar reactions. But that being said,
Granted, I have my own personal gripe with lunar reactions, but I'll get into that into a different video.
that is aside the point. I even try to reiterate and even make my point way more clearer, and a lot more people even still didn't understand. So like that's even crazier. You know, I will enhance my previous post point of view, since many people are plain retarded on Twitter that they just can't understand. Wuwa does not have filler patches. I mean, even fucking 2.1. But let's be honest, people are gonna say that is a filler patch. I also said that felt like a filler patch, but you know, it is what it is. Wuwa does not have specific filler patches. Genshin Impact has Windbloom Festival in Mondstadt and Lantern Rite in Liyue. Both serve the purpose of showing you older characters on a filler patch in order to either make the players pull for them in the reruns or make the players feel like the world feels more alive.
Which is good for an open world game where playable characters don't even appear in the open world as you're running around exploring it, as you're running around playing this exploration game. Why shouldn't they do that? There's no reason why they shouldn't, regardless if it's monetary reason or for fan service reason, for players to enjoy the fact of seeing their playable characters interacting with each other, creating new character interactions and shit. You know, something a story should do with such a big cast of characters.
Wuwa, you may like this type of exposition of characters. You may think this is a good storytelling. This isn't. The plot isn't going nowhere, and this is just to sell older units.
The plot is moving forward when we have new concepts, lore-related concepts, that will be later on play a role in the main story plot, which we've seen multiple times. I already gave the example about the 2.7 summertime event and the concept we learned in it, and Nahida's introduction and how it played a role in version 3 of Genshin Impact. Same thing with Fontaine. That summertime event we had right before Fontaine came out, guess what? The whole concept of every person there being a freaking hydro entity and not a human played a massive role in the reveal of Fontaine, where we find out, sorry, story spoilers, every person in Fontaine is not human. They're a freaking hydro mimic. And the people of Fontaine completely forgot this because they romanticized being human so fucking much that these niggas deluded themselves to thinking that they were human. So every generation that has come after the original generation has no idea that they were freaking hydro entities. And that's the reason why they were going to get clapped by the flood. The whole thing about fate in Teyvat, we learned about that in version 3 when it came down to, you know, Irminsul and how Irminsul is this grand database of every piece of information, everything that has happened in the world. Guess what? Fate is carved onto Irminsul, which is the reason why the flood was going to happen in Fontaine. Again, learned these concepts back in version 3. We also learned in version 3 that you can't just change the past. It's impossible, especially if you're using the ley lines of the Irminsul. You can't change the past. You can only like scrub information, but you can't change the actions that happened in the past. You can only scrub the information. Like how Wanderer tried to scrub his identity out of it, thinking he could change the past and save Niwa, his friend, from dying, or even him joining the Harbingers. Right? Guess what? It didn't happen. What happened with his friend Niwa still happened. The only difference is it seemed like he had yet to join the Fatui, because he probably rewrote some information in there that made him be a wandering soul rather than him immediately joining the Fatui. Because again, that's information. Or he was yet to join the Fatui when we met him again. But we know he still committed those crimes that he committed. He still did them things.
Units. Wuwa progresses the story further with more main story quests with an extra area every single version. All the characters in one long arena shida aren't going to be shown on Lehigh Roy because it doesn't make sense in the story to be shown on Lehigh Roy.
I mentioned Beiji and Mortefi. Those two characters could appear in Lehigh Roy's story. Most definitely. There's not a reason why they couldn't. You can make a reason for why they could. They're legitimately doctors and scientists.
The only characters that
Lehigh Roy Academy is known as this great place for scholars anyway. So why couldn't every scholar that we've come across in the game could have studied at Lehigh Roy's Academy?
would make sense would be Black Shore's characters, 1.0 characters by the way. That was the prologue between 2.8 and 3.0 with Shiza, Shorekeeper, and the others. Rover goes to Lahairoi to discover more of his past self and why Didi went to Lahairoi previously. Shiza goes to Lahairoi after leaving Honami City to get to have a normal schoolgirl and return to her parents once again. If the story is focusing on Rover's journey, which is
both can happen at the same time. There's no reason for why it only should be one way. As again, we have animes that do this. There's a whole bunch of anime stories that do this. A whole bunch of movies that do this. There's a whole bunch of books that do this as well. Of this whole idea of two stories happening at the same time. This idea that the story can only happen for one is bullshit.
which established since 1.0 by the way, there is no reason to have a focus on Shiza meeting her parents. Her arc is over.
Her arc isn't over. Well, it's over now because they off-screened it. Again, I mentioned my Nefa example with Chisa and compared her to Chisa. Mentioned it blatantly.
It doesn't fucking matter. You wish that there was like 30 fucking minutes of showing Shiza interacting with other students and getting to have a normal...
Not just interacting with other students, but interacting with the other new playable characters of the region who have been here for 20 plus years. Like Luke, like Mornay, who could have recognized Shiza. Simple writing, simple rearranging of the writing to make Chisa's character feel like it's actual important character to the new location, just as much as Linnae and of course Luke and Morty and Rover and his personal story and his personal mission for why he's there too.
Normal life. You wish that there was a cut scene of like 4 minutes of her hugging her parents. It doesn't matter.
It does matter when the story itself was building that shit up from a previous update. Again, the Chisa and a Nefa comparison. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
Her story. It doesn't matter to the in the grand scheme of things. It does not matter to Rover's story. He is the.
It does matter when Chisa became Rover's friend, and Rover cares about Chisa, his friend, his/her friend.
Protagonist. It's his own story. It's the way that the story is being made. If you're complaining about that, you are nitpicking. You are indeed.
That's not a nitpick. That's a valid criticism.
Nitpicking. The new arc of Lahairoi with the puppeteer Fractionless Resonator that can manipulate alive or dead people, Liaison, is here, and the rest of it...
Shit, I just got hit with a spoil. Hopefully I forget about this shit by the time I play the Act 2.
Still has to be unfolded. Remember that? There is something about, Shu Huan in the past, 2.7, that there's a guy who technically was taking advantage, like using his master, right, as a puppet to order... Shu Huan to execute Geshu-Lin. That was something that is in the game. And it's being told here, right now, from a different perspective. In this case, it's Linnae trying to get that guy with, right now, it's basically the Liaison, which is an NPC. But you know of that. And it matters. It is part of the world building. It doesn't need...
Okay. And you know what's so crazy about that? What way does that connect to Rover's personal story? You've been arguing this entire time about how the story should only focus about the Rover. Yet you're mentioning a point about this Fraxis character that was mentioned by another playable character, and how what we learned about that in version 2.7 or the beginning of 2.0 or whatever with Wandering Swordsman is coming back to play a role in the main plot. That, mind you, it has no direct relation to the Rover at all. To Rover trying to remember why he came to Lahairoi. Like, what the fuck? You just been arguing this entire point why they shouldn't be, why Wuthering Waves doesn't need to do that. But yet, simultaneously, you just mentioned the point how they're doing that.
And it's being told here, right?
Shut up.
About, Shu Huan in the past, 2.7, that there's a guy who technically was taking advantage, like using his master, right, as a puppet to order Shu Huan to execute Geshu-Lin. That was something that is in the game. And it's being told here, right now.
Again, what type of importance does that have to Rover's personal story of coming to Lahairoi you remember why he came to Lahairoi's academy? That doesn't have anything to do with that. You've been arguing against that this entire time, and now you're going to use this as a gotcha of proving your point, when no, it doesn't prove your point. It actually proves the other side's point of carrying over, setup from a previous version update and carrying it on into the future of a new version for a new story and connecting it with it? Like, what?
Now, from a different perspective, in this case, it's Linnae trying to get that guy with, right now, it's basically the liaison, which is an NPC. But you know of that, and it matters. It is part of the world building. It doesn't need to be the main focal point.
It's becoming a main focal point when he's the threat to Lahairoi. Oh my god, bro. That nigga is the threat to Lahairoi. He has become the main focal point. That whole storyline has become the main focal point. And it can. Because guess what? That wandering swordsman, you just explained a perfect setup for why the wandering swordsman would appear in Lahairoi. You just gave it to us. You just legitimately explained without realizing it. That you just gave the pathway, the line of logic connecting Wandering Swordsman to Lahairoi and why he would even appear in Lahairoi. Because he's after that liaison nigga who can manipulate people. Like, bruh. And guess what? If that nigga Wandering Swordsman appear in Lahairoi and he after that nigga, guess what? It's gonna make sense. Because he hunting that nigga. He's after him.
If you don't understand that, then it's your issue. It's not my issue if you don't understand that. If you're getting mad because you wished.
Oh, hold up. Let me read his tweet myself. The New York, the puppeteer rocks this was in here. Is here and the rest still has to be unfolded. Again, he was mentioned in a previous. That nigga was mentioned in passing by Wandering Swordsman in version 2. Was it the latter end of 2.7, the epilogue of 2.7, or was it the epilogue of version 2.8 for when to see the story? One of the two. But it's like, that's a plot that didn't even happen with the main plot of Renacida that was mentioned to us and we learned about from Wandering Swordsman, and it's connecting again back to the main plot because he was after that guy. It's like, how can you say that's not the main focus when he's the villain of the Lahairoi arc? Clearly he's gonna be a part of the main focus. It may not be the main focus, but it's a part of the main focus.
That you could see your G.
Because that Fraxis member is gonna get in the way of the rover trying to get what they're after.
Your Shangli
by destroying Lahairoi in some way, shape, or form.
Mad because you wished that you could see your Jinxes, your Shanglis, your Carlottas, or your Phoebes, and when there is no other reason than to say you are too used to how Hoyoverse does their filler patches that serve no purpose to its story other than being a death patch to show more of older.
I disprove this point again in his comment section of his community post. You can check that out for yourself on his channel. I mentioned again Wanderer, the Wanderer character we mentioned in a Wanderer we met in a limited time event patch, completely slaps this whole argument he's making to the fucking floor. It just slaps it to the fucking floor. Absolutely. Blatantly. The amount of times we went back to Dragonspine for those limited time events, and then that whole Dragonspine arc played a role in the quote unquote filler patch for Natlan version 5.5, where that whole storyline related to Dragonspine and Durin and Albedo comes to a grand conclusion in version 5.5, where real life Durin and fiction world Durin gets merged together and becomes a playable character. Again, this just slaps his whole argument to the floor of like these filler patches having no tie to the main narrative of Genshin Impact story when they clearly do.
Older characters. You may say it makes the world feel more alive, but in reality, it's just a lazy way of showing older characters to make people pull for them once again. There are no justifications for wanting a bad exposition in shitty filler patches. If you can't understand this, if you can't
understand and realize how dumb your take is, with the blatant evidence that completely contradicts your point that you're making, both in Wuwa and in Genshin, I don't see how you think you're right in this conversation. You're the 10% in this 90-10 issue.
Understand this, and if you really think that every story has to be similar to Genshin's. You are
No one's saying that every story need to be similar to Genshin, but if they're going to sit here and put forth the effort to write these playable characters into the main plot that's related to the Rover story or unrelated to the Rover story of trying to like find out who they were in the past and trying to solve this lament problem, which affects not just the Rover but everybody on the fucking planet of Solaris, is like, what are we talking about here? They should be doing that. Because they are the ones writing themselves into these corners. They're writing themselves on these pathways to do such things. And if they don't follow through on the thing that they're setting up, that they're writing, guess what? It's bad writing. Again, Genshin is the trash game, in Blazicon's opinion, and to a great many of people's opinion. So people expect a certain quality of the game, of the story's writing, which has always been a failure of the game, and they want it to be better. They want it to follow through on shit that they set up.
are in the wrong. You are 100% in the wrong. I don't really care if these people don't understand like this. Obviously, they're coming from with their own ideas, with their own way of thinking, obviously. But these people don't get it. They just don't fucking.
Or maybe your take is so fucking stupid as shit and you can't realize how dumb it sounds when, again, the game you play that you glazed to have ever acting like it's God's gift to the world, the greatest gacha game ever, completely contradicts your own statements. By, having old characters reappear in new quests, or have writing that was setting up something that's going to be touched on later down the line. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
Get it. Honestly, that's what I think. I think that this is honest. Honestly, this entire situation is full on dishonesty.
I think your take is mad dishonest and is a hand wave to bad writing and just excusing it because, because Wuwa doesn't do filler patches or Wuwa doesn't, follow through on their character writing that they set up themselves. Therefore, it's fine. The hand wave to that valid criticism is so fucking stupid. It's retarded.
At its pinnacle. In my eyes, I genuinely believe that these people don't understand that there are different ways of making stories. There are different ways of making stories. If a game has more focus on the world itself instead of the main story, I'm not gonna like it.
That's fine if you don't like it. But to paint that as a bad thing, despite the fact Genshin has completely done the opposite when they focus both on the world that the traveler is journeying through to understand, which he was told to do by his sister back in version 1, and they're simultaneously focusing on the main plot of that and his personal character, along with the stories of other characters who are also being negatively affected by the crises in their region that the traveler is helping, him integrating into this world so that he can understand his love for, so that he can have a love for this world, unlike his sister who does not love the world of Teyvat and only cares about the people of Conria and the nation of Conria itself. That's the difference between both of the characters. That's the difference between the traveler and their sibling. Blatant difference. I don't know how you can't see that and think that, they're not focused on the main story and they're just focusing just on world building and filler plots, blah, blah, blah. So that means nothing matters, despite the fact the game completely contradicts this.
I'm not gonna like it. If you're okay with that, you can be okay with that. If you're okay with eating the fucking slop of having 7 or 5 or whatever how many Windbloom festivals there are.
There hasn't been 7 or 5 Windbloom festivals. It's been about 2 or 3 at best. And even some information from those events have come back into the main story in some way, shape, or form. I'm trying to remember exactly, but I can't remember. I need to dive deep back into it.
Fucking Lantern Rights and all those filler patches. Good for you. I didn't like that. That's why I left that game.
Cool that you didn't like it, but to make the argument that it held no weight to future story patches related to the main plot is retarded. As I've proven, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of this entire reaction. Again, go check my response in his community post. You're going to see what the fuck I'm talking about.
Game. I, like many others, wrote on the survey that I did not want that type of shit in Wuwa. And guess what?
And guess what? It's fucking crippling the damn story when they're not like building up concepts that will be later played on in the story later on, where they're not fucking following through on character writing. It's the hindrance of the story, which makes the story bad. It makes the writing for the story bad. Why set up all this expectation for this character and not follow through with it that they themselves set up? Oh, you don't know why? It's because we're focused on the new Banner character now. So the old character that you knew about previously doesn't fucking matter. If they didn't fucking matter, why the fuck did we spend so much time with her then? Why? And learn a little bit about Lehyroy from her.
I'm getting what I wanted. I'm getting a focal point on the main story quest, which is Rover. Do you remember what actually happened in 3.0? 3.0 Rover. So this is exactly what happens when he actually sees his own memories. From Honami City, Shuhuan, Galbrina, you see Ayuno, you see Augusta as well, Forlovin 2.5, Septimont Lupa 2.4, 2.3, Zani, Chacona, Cantarella, Cartithian 2.2, Phoebe, Brand, Russia, Carlotta, and then you go back to 1.4, 1.3, 1.2, 1.2, 1.1 with Shangli and Jinsi, and then Yinlin, and then Jian, and then what happens afterwards? Memories of a past that he never experienced. You never experienced this. Rover never experienced this. Do you understand? Do you understand what I'm saying? You get to see more of your past self. What happens there? What happens? It seems that you were already here and you already know Marnie, apparently, from your past. So you cannot say that the story is focused, it should be focusing on Shizon, whoever the fuck what, because the story is Rover's.
Again, they can do both at the same time, my guy. I don't know how you can't grasp that shit. If Genji can do both at the same time, focusing on the traveler's personal story and on other side characters' stories that intertwine with the main plot, then what the fuck are we talking about? Both can do the same thing. They can do the same thing. It's easy to do the same thing. It's not difficult. Oh my good lord, bro.
Be focusing on Shizon, whoever the fuck what.
By your logic, you want Wuthering Waves game to solely focus on the Rover. Okay, that's fine. That means a whole bunch of playable characters need to get cut out from the fucking game. Any playable character that does not have a direct relationship with the Rover, aka knew the Rover in the past, like Black Shores, like the Black Shores members, like if they don't have a relationship, anything akin to that, to like even Mornay as well in 3.0, they need to be cut from the game entirely. Blatantly. That's your argument then. If that's the case, someone needs to go ahead, write on the surveys, cut every playable character out the fucking game because none of them have any direct tie to the Rover's personal story, which is what we're following as well. Despite the fact the Rover goes from region to region, fucking helping these niggas with their personal crisis. That's what we need to do then. That's your argument, blatantly. Oh my god.
Because the story is Rover's story. So enough with this. Enough with this stupid argumentation that things need to be similar to what you're used to.
No one's asking for it to be similar, but we're expecting a better quality. Well, they're asking for it to be similar, but they're not asking for it to be one-to-one. And it's easy to do. It's not difficult to do for the writers to set up something from a previous update and then continue it along into the next new update where new characters are being released. It's not fucking difficult to do. Again, if the trash game and the trash company Hoyoverse can do it, why in the fuck can this new company, the better billion-dollar company with the better game, why the fuck can they not do it? Is their character writing that fucking shit? Is their story writing that fucking bad? Shoot, you're making the argument that we should remove that playable characters who don't have direct ties to the Rover should be removed from the fucking game because they have no meaning, they have no value to the Rover's personal story. And guess what? We can chalk this up to a lot of playable characters not having value that connects to the Rover's personal story. But guess what? A lot of them do. Jinshi has a value connected to the Rover's personal story because her master was a friend of the Rover's. Did I say Jinshi or Cheng Li? Hope if I said Jinshi, I meant to say Cheng Li. Cheng Li's master was a friend of the Rovers. Jinshi was the resonator of the Sentinel, which the Sentinel in question had a direct relationship with the Rover as well, because the Rover is the Arbiter. Like, if that's the only type of character interactions you want out of the game, then you should need to put it on the survey that every playable character moving forward needs to have a direct relationship with the Rover and Rover only. Moving forward, we should not have any more characters who have direct relationships with the Rover that didn't know about him in his past life. If we get any more characters like that, then guess what? The story is bad. It is. The story ain't focusing on what it should be then, based on his logic.
Used to from Hoyoverse. It's ridiculous. It is a ridiculous premise. Allow the story to be what it is. If you don't like it, because it's not your cup of tea, because you're way more focused on whatever's happening in the world instead of Rover's story, then guess what? Go play something else.
Okay, so I hope niggas keep that same energy for this argument when people say Genshin's combat doesn't need to be like Wuwa's. I hope y'all keep that same energy, which y'all don't at all. Because when people say go play a different game, then if y'all don't like that for like the fact that this is Genshin's gameplay, y'all are the first ones to be saying no. We're valid in our criticism. It should be just like they should be changing its gameplay just like how Wuwa does it. It should be like Wuwa's gameplay. It should be just like Wuwa when they're jamming a playable character with 10 fucking animation sequences, right? It should be just like Wuwa so they can have a parry mechanic. I don't want to see that argument ever again. If this is the argument you're making when it comes down to the story, I'd bet not see that argument for the gameplay ever again. You wanna know why? It's because it's a fucking double standard.
Go actually play something else. Nobody gives a fuck if you're fucking...
You don't even need to play a Genshin to even make this comparison. Again, go play other non-gacha games, and they'll do the exact same shit that Genshin has done when it comes down to like setting up characters from a previous chapter in the story to having them reappear later down the line in the story. Even with the main character having their own personal goal. It happens. I played Horizon Zero Dawn a while ago, so I can't really remember characters' names. But I knew there were characters that we met back in the first prologue of the game and the first chapter of the game that ended up coming back into the story, whether it be midway through the story or at the end of the story, to help out with her. And even in Horizon Zero Dawn 2, characters from the first game that we met in the first beginning chapters of that game ends up coming to help Aloy in the new game and their new chapters.
To the waifu.
And of course, we also had quests in Horizon Zero Dawn that also expanded the world building that had nothing to do with the main story plot at all. Like what, Frozen Wilds, right? Frozen Wilds had nothing to do with the main plot of what we were doing in Horizon Zero Dawn, but the lore that we got from it was important to the overarching lore of the entire game because it was a necessity to learn about this. It had value.
He's not being shown because you're not...
You know the reason why it had value? Because it was part of the what you call this system? The Gaia system, where it was supposed to bring human life back to the world after all of life died out on planet Earth thanks to the Hades protocol. And the fucking robots killing off the oxygen in the air and the plants that resulted to humans dying.
You're not anymore in Huanglong, or you're not anymore in Rinashita. What a dumbass fucking takes.
This entire take you giving was dumb as shit. I'm sorry, bro. It's trash. It's terrible. It's ignorant. It's an excuse to sit here and say that Withering Waves can't do it just because they focus on the main character. Okay, if that's the case, tell me why in the world the Genshin is able to do it. How is it non-gacha games that's not even made by Hoyoverse able to do it? You wanna know why? Because guess what? It's clearly important to the story. It's clearly important to these character interactions. By his own logic, Wuwa needs to cut at least 90% of its cast. Because the majority of characters in this game have no direct relationship to the Rover and their personal story. At all. Tell me, what value does Brent have to the Rover's personal story at all? I need to know this. What about Phoebe? Do they have any? Nope. Like, we got a whole bunch of characters we can fucking X the fuck out right now. Augusta, X her out. Yuno, X her out too. Lupa, X her out. We got a whole bunch of characters we need to X out from the game. By his logic. This story is only about the rover and should only be focused about him. Then these other characters don't need to exist. That means Wuthering Waves should be pumping out less characters in comparison to Genshin Impact. We should be only getting playable characters who have direct ties to the rover. Whether it be Black Shore members or... Shoot, even some of the Black Shore members need to get cut out. Fucking Encore needs to get cut out. Ayato, cut him out too. But you get the point I'm making here. That's clearly his argument that he's making. Anyway, I think I've said everything I need to say in this reaction. Y'all can like, sub, turn on notification bell, join my YouTube community Discord. If you disagree with my take that I gave, tell me in the comment section below. I'm more than willing to hear it. Check out my yapping topics and my yapping reaction content as well. I stream here on YouTube. I stream Genshin, Star Rail, Zenless, and Wuwa, and 2 non-gacha games, those being Fate Samurai Remnant, and Gravity Rush Remastered, which is another game that has side characters that appear in previous chapter stories and, you know, come back to play later on, or one-off instances where we met them in the story and then they end up coming back later on and where we meet them again throughout different chapters. Like that dad we met at the beginning of the Gravity Rush story and his son who appears later down the line in the story in a different location that we're exploring at the current point in time in that chapter. Anyway, y'all get the point I made. I'll see y'all in the next reaction. This is KallaTheYapper signing out. Peace.